My pleasure to introduce Beverly Howard from California Baptist University to make our last presentation.
Wow, what a packed 24 hours we've had, and it has been easy to keep up. You keep there, hanging in there and hanging in there, and when you're so energized with all the wonderful ideas and thinking that we've had, it's easy to hang in there. And I want to thank Randall and Terry and David and the grad students and the associates and everything that they've done to make this a wonderful event. So, one last presentation here, and if you will turn your ears to, or your listening speed to warp speed, because I have a lot of information, or a lot of ideas at least. Now, I'm here from a university that does not offer a major or a minor in church music, sacred music, or music and worship. However, every music major at the school is required to take a music and worship course. It's a 3-unit course that I teach, and it's a lower division course. So I usually get the students when they're freshmen or sophomores. Sometimes they delay taking it a bit. And so what I share with you today and bring to you today are just offering some things that I have done in my teaching in the classroom using technology. Perhaps it's the bane and the blessing of our modern world. And I have 3 questions for us to consider. Shockingly, who this generation is. One more time on that. The second question is, what are our new tools that we can use? And then the last one is, does technology change our teaching? Should it change our teaching? You know, should we be high-tech or low-tech in making those decisions? Can everyone see the cartoon? Okay, you get it. I purchased this cartoon for use in my music and worship class a few years ago when iPods were the thing. Everyone had an iPod, it was new. And so this cartoon originally appeared in the New Yorker. And the idea was that somewhere down the road, you know, we'll be in church and we'll all have our little iPods. Well, that day actually is here. It's no longer down the road because hymnal publishers are preparing hymnal apps for e-readers and smartphones and iPhones. And so they're teaching in this digital world, whether or not it's our first native language, and whether or not it really is our students' native language. I do want to take one last brief look at some of the traits of the generation that we're teaching. I turn to the Beloit mindset list. If any of you are familiar with that, annually, the 2 professors from Beloit College publish a list of characteristics or the worldview of an entering class. And I've extracted a few things that might be of interest to us in teaching music and worship. As technology, now the Beloit 2016, these are the entering freshmen. With any luck at all, they'll finish in 4 years, so they will graduate. But they have come, as we have said several times, addicted to their electronic narcotics. They've been in cyberspace. And they, having grown up with those MP3s and iPods, they don't listen to radios anymore, probably not even in the car. With their iPhones, they don't wear wristwatches anymore. I do have some students that are so averse to actually taking notes, I have seen the smartphone go into class and snap a photo of the PowerPoint or the iPad. So technology makes us all actually quite resourceful. A little bit more on the technology again. Yes, they look for ebooks. However, I don't think that's necessarily a fascination with technology. I think it's the reality of finances, the high cost of books. And let's face it, I'd rather carry my Kindle or my iPad than about 4 or 5 tablets on campus. So, and then we have the ubiquitous YouTube. They can get their news anytime. No longer do people sit down and watch the 5:30 evening news. I wanted to just pass this on. We've talked a bit about our worship leaders need to be theologically grounded. It's not surprising that the class of 2016 may not recognize some of the biblical sources for some of these terms when you consider the population at large. What I'm finding, sadly, is that I'm getting students that don't know some basic biblical narratives, particularly from the Old Testament. And I'm throwing that out there just that we need to be mindful that they don't necessarily come with all the background you may think they have. And I wasn't quite sure what to call these two items, so I just stuck social on there. If you have an iPhone, you can take a video, upload it to YouTube, and you're published. You're a published videographer. And this goes along with this instant fame and stardom. That seems to be what they've seen modeled for them across North America. And then one last thing about this, being a tribal generation and wanting to be in constant contact with their peers, that to me reflects that yearning for community, and we need to be mindful of that when we're deciding what kinds of technology to use. So, what are all our new tools? Well, I've been teaching a while. My teaching environment has gone literally from a blackboard when it was black. Does anyone remember a blackboard? Okay. Then the new thing was the green chalkboard. And if you taught music, it was green chalkboard with white lines. Then that gave way to the whiteboard with those noxious fumes coming from the markers. Those make you want to pass out. And now we're back to Blackboard, albeit the digital learning management system. So I feel like in my teaching career, I've come full circle in this. Now, when we talk about a wired campus, at my wired campus in the classroom, we have wireless internet now throughout the campus. Our music building is about 6 or 7 years old, so it came pre-wired for everything. But in my classroom, I make heavy use of Blackboard, all the things that are available there, iTunes, YouTubes, laptops, ebooks if they have them. I'm okay with print text, either way, just as long as they get the book. iPads. Our newest thing now, clickers. That's what we're in a pilot program using clickers in our classes. And then, of course, the software that supports being a music major. Now, when our music majors come to Cal Baptist, they pay, I think it's a $3,600 fee on top of already outrageous, tuition and room and board. But for that, they receive a MacBook, and it is loaded with what they need for word processing. It comes with Keynote presentation software. But it also has McGamut for ear training, Finale, and Logic. So they have their complete studio. And then Apple throws in for free an iPad. Now in my classes, I've had to start saying, bring your laptop because we're going to do Finale. Because Finale is not fully functional on iPad yet. So I'm now having to make a distinction which they bring. What a problem to have. And how long did I use? There we go. Okay. Okay, internet tools. Take a brief survey through some of these. As we're all familiar with audio, video recordings, and all kinds of research, performance practice, worship planning tools, and social networking, we have such a rich digital environment from which to choose. And so I want to take a couple looks at these. On Hymns on YouTube, now this part of my presentation is kind of a collapse of some research that Patricia Woodard and I presented at the Hymn Society this last summer. Patricia is a reference librarian at Hunter College at the City University of New York, and we wanted to see what was out there for hymns on YouTube, those kinds of videos. So I want to give credit, of course, because this was a collaborative effort. But how many are there? If you go to the YouTube search bar and just type in hymn or hymns, you can get an instantaneous search yielding over 200 hits, as they might say. Now, that does not include things that have been tagged as religious song or religious music or Christian song. This also may include some non-Christian hymns, but the vast majority out there are Christian hymns. Well, what kinds of hymns were posted? Now, in my music and worship class, I spend a long time with congregational song, and because that's the only shot these kids have at getting that exposure at my school right now. So I was very interested in seeing what was out there. We went to Michael Hahn's Streams of Congregational Song. How many of you are familiar with his model? There's this enormous pool that we can choose from this music to select to sing for our every worship service we have. And Michael has created a very fluid model by which to label a lot of these songs. And he's come up with 7 streams that feed this pool of song. Most of these are probably self-evident. The one Pentecostal song, that is the stream that Michael uses to put the praise and worship and contemporary Christian music into. So, and he's trying to get away from, you know, we have such a problem with labels. So this is kind of his offering of a solution for that. Now, my guess was contemporary Christian would be one of the most highly represented, or things from the Pentecostal stream, and I thought the other would be gospel. And I was right. Those were the 2 streams most predominantly uploaded as YouTube videos. But what we found amazingly was that every stream was represented. Now, Patricia and I concentrated on those videos that showed this music in a congregational setting and people actually singing it, so what it looked and felt like. But that doesn't include all the videos that were done for other, you know, videos with lyrics and, you know, they ripped off an MP3 of Chris Tomlin or something. Doesn't include those. This was strictly congregational song. You actually could support a course in hymnology just using YouTube recordings. I wouldn't recommend it, but it certainly could be done. Now, we want to know who was posting them. Everybody and anybody. As long as you really have, if you go to your congregation and you've got your iPhone and you hit the video thing, you can do a video and upload it. It can be that simple. But we also have found video YouTubes that were very sophisticated and done very, very well professionally. This is probably the most highly participatory phenomenon on the internet, and because anybody can upload this video. And then the why they're being posted. Now the why, I think, brings in some implications as we teach people that are going to be music ministers. A lot of them were brought in because somebody heard a song, it moved them, they wanted to share it with others, so they created this to inspire others or to have creative expression. And I do want to show you a couple of these, and I hope everything works. Okay, so we're so good. You just never know. This is a video done by a youth group, Seventh-day Adventist youth group, where they took a mission trip to Belize. So it's a video of their trip set to This Is My Father's World after the commercial.
Copyright.
The airborne mission.
I can envision this being part of the youth group's report back to their church. And that would be something our students would be interested in doing. I actually showed that video to my 85-year-old mother, and she went, wow, when I get old, I'll really enjoy something like this. Now, there was one that Patricia found, this meditation. I'm going to show it to you first. This is from the folk stream, Michael's folk stream.
Christ unbend and under, joy is Christ's dawn.
Now the idea of this one by the creators, yes, it's creative expression, but it was created by a German musician and an Asian gentleman putting the applets and the software together. And the idea was to meditate. And if you go out to their website, you find that he has done a whole lot of things. He's done things like Waldo, of all people, to this kind of thing for meditation. And then one last little bit, one of my personal favorites here is I could just see a youth doing this, a person doing this kind of thing. Then the why people are putting YouTube videos of hymns for information or hymn-related things. Most obvious, telling the story behind the hymn. And then to promote a product or self-promotion. And there are numerous ones of those. Some are very slick and very well done, and others are very grassroots. Now, teaching with YouTube. As I said, you could do a whole hymnology course doing nothing but YouTube, but that's not such a wise thing to do. But one of the things that excites me most about YouTube's is the chance to get some insight into performance practice that's out of your own culture. And there is no way that I can talk to my class and with words convey what an African-American hymn choir sounds like. I can put on an audio file, but it's still not the whole story. But when I can go to YouTube and do this, they start having some... Now, another aspect that I think can be very useful in teaching with YouTube and then teaching our students to do with YouTube are tutorials. Now, I have just finished work on Presbyterian hymnal that's coming out next year, and one of the things in some of the surveys that the publishing corporation made was that the churches were afraid to use a lot of the global because they didn't understand the musical style. So I think institutions, churches, publishing houses, if they would make really well done in terms of pedagogy and teaching it, videos, not slick, professional, cheesy sounding types of videos of the music, but real people doing the music making, but some good pedagogy behind it, I think that would be a tremendous boon students might be able and interested in doing that. I'm coming down here. These are all available if you ever want to look at any of the others of these. This is the one I was going to show. They did, I checked with the Publishing Corporation, they did secure copyright permission for this use. That's the other thing that we have to teach our students about in the copyright. So here's this way. So, real church.
Hallelujah, we are singing. Hallelujah, we are singing. Hallelujah.
So this was a Native American tune. I believe it's celebrating race as well. And so it's giving people some idea. The Publishing Corporation, they did some of their own work. They didn't have all the churches do it. But I think if you can get some really good ones done, that would be great. Historical. You've seen all the YouTubes telling the story behind It Was Well With My Soul. There's a million of those out there telling the story behind Amazing Grace or the life of Fanny Crosby. This one is from Klondike Baptist Church. I can't remember what town it was in Florida. But this pastor feels that victory in Jesus is underrated.
If you have been in evangelical circles the last 20 to 30 years, there's a good chance you have heard and sung the hymn Victory in Jesus. Victory in Jesus is a hymn that I can look back to in my early years of the gospel of Christianity. Remember congregations just worshiping fervently, singing this song to the Lord. Now this hymn,
This pastor goes on to tell the story behind the
has slowly
and
found its
something
way
about,
into disuse among
Gene
many
Martin's
congregations.
life. But sadly, you never hear the hymn on this particular video. But this is the kind of thing that can be used historically. Now, research potential, I'm going to talk about projects that perhaps students can do. I'm trying something for the first time. I have my fingers crossed. My music and worship class students all in the past have done a research paper at the end of the semester, one of their final projects. They also do some worship service things. But for this research paper, which is a short paper, I'm offering the option of doing a YouTube video. And I've structured it that, first of all, it has to be in public domain. I don't want to deal, I don't want to model, not going with copyright issues. And it has to be in public domain. They have to submit a bibliography of their content. They have to submit a storyboard showing them what's going to be on each screen so that they've thought it through just like they would when the paper people submit their outline to me. And then the finished product, of course, will be the YouTube video. Now, the other requirement, they have to do the performing or a group of their peers or maybe their church. I'm not allowing them to download an MP3 and use something commercially made. So those two restrictions, I don't know how popular this will actually end up being. But I want them to take the approach of something where they're giving this background of the song that they've chosen, or they can maybe even interpret text. Some of my Christian studies students that come into that class like to interpret the text. So we'll see how that goes. And then I think the ministry outreach potential that I've alluded to earlier, the possibilities of our students learning about how these YouTubes affect people that are hearing them and seeing them. There can be some potential there. Now, researching actual YouTube things, Patricia was really interested in the content and discourse analyses. This would be a great master's thesis, actually. If you went through and watched YouTube videos and then analyzed the content according to what the imagery is, what the oral content is, how the two work together, and then comparing the original hymn or song with its repurposed content. And then the discourse analysis, all those comments, do you ever get to reading those comments following the YouTube videos. Those are very interesting, and doing an analysis of those generally involving either they fall into the things of being appreciative of the work, evocative, oh, I remember hearing that hymn at my grandmother's funeral, something like that, or expressing gratitude, or as a reminder of, you know, my faith, and excuse me, so those could be some possibilities there. Now, we all in this room know about the tools that are available in terms of for research and performance practice and worship planning, and using those in teaching judiciously can be helpful. You know, we have JSTOR ProQuest, but we have hymnary.org, which is that wonderful database for research for hymns. And it has acquired it's acquiring sponsorship, so it's broadening a little bit. There are now some modest offerings for the lectionary series, modest offerings of hymns to accompany the lectionary series. And also they've taken the hymn interpretation columns from the Hymn Society's journal and have reprinted a number of those. Now, when it comes to websites, I call it first contact for my students. The Sacred Heart website, fossil.org, and the West Gallery Music Association website, that's great for the first time a student's being exposed because the information's good. There are links to wonderful articles, recordings, videos, and I can highly recommend that kind of site. But what that brings up then will be teaching our students to do some critical thinking about the sites. Now, there are all kinds of tools out there. I really can't say enough about the Calvin Institute of Christian Worship site in terms of the worship planning resources that are there that you can guide myself to, my students to. And they are so gracious by providing video and audio files of the presentations at the symposium. And then Reformed Worship, and there are some other journals out there that are subscription series that are good for our students to know about. Things like Worship Matrix, this one of course was celebrating grace, but being able to, again, to match scripture and hymn and select readings and worship materials with a subscription-based thing. And then CCLI, what it does best is what it started out to do initially, which is the database for selecting songs and copyright clearance things. It's branched out into some blogs and then some tutorials. And I don't want to step on anyone's feet, but I'm not enamored with the tutorials that are on there. I think they're good. We could do a better, somebody could do a better job than that. Now, when there's all of these things out there, and some will be of good quality and some not, we need to be teaching our students how to think critically or to evaluate what they're looking at, because usually it's on the internet. Of course it's true. It's kind of how they've been raised. And my students, actually this week while I'm gone, I gave them 5 websites dealing with music and worship. And they are creating an annotated bibliography, which gives them a trial run for the one they have to turn in for their final project. And and I specified that I want their annotations to include a summary of the content of the website. Then in their opinion, is that website, is it something fact or research-based on the content, or is it more espousal of personal opinion? And then the third thing I want them to do is say, would this be a helpful website or not in your plan, in your experience? How many in here use blogs? Anybody? I've not had good success with that, so I don't do that. And you can share your experiences when we get to our question thing. Because I meet my students face-to-face, I haven't felt the need for discussion forums and the Facebook and blogs. I'm not even touching on online or distance learning. That's a whole other aspect of this. But Skype certainly has wonderful classroom potential if you're trying to hear another person in the field or coordinate things, perhaps if you're planning some kind of mission trip. And then my final question, does it change our teaching? Should it change? Yeah, I'm going to say yes and no. Yes, because there are new methods to learn, new technologies to learn, new things that we have to grow with. And no, because good teaching is good teaching. And we always have to ask the question, is this going to be a high-tech day or a low-tech day? That's kind of the question, because if we go in there every class and we've got of this visual overload that we can get from the internet, that's probably going to put a glaze over them eventually, like the talking head does in earlier generations. So I'm offering not best practices because they're what I do. I'm offering what I think are some good practices for this. The one is that I think Blackboard especially helps the teacher effectively communicate. And that's one of the hallmarks of good teaching. I say from syllabus to semester grade and all those times in between. Because Blackboard management, for those of you that are that or another learning management system, you can upload syllabus, handout, anything that the student may have a print copy of and will lose. And tying on to something that Eric was saying yesterday about this generation and their tech savviness or not, my students still want a hard copy of the syllabus. It would be wonderful to be paperless, but they want the hard copy. But they need the hard copy. So the Blackboard offers a repository for that, for handouts. It's a place where I can upload interactive tutorials I've created. I can put links to other things that will enrich their experience. I can upload assignments. The grading is instantly updated when you enter a grade, so the student always knows where they stand in the class. So, next thing, I aim for balance, that low-tech, high-tech thing again. I always have to ask myself when I go into a class, is it helpful? What I have planned, if I can do an internet activity or I can do an interactive thing in class or another approach, does what I'm doing with the internet give them a new perspective, give them new eyes, new ears, and if it does, we do it. Then again, as I mentioned, teaching for critical analysis, and then using it for teachable moments, and we have a million of those when you're dealing with technology. And then, because we all usually have to learn something in technology, right there. Just remember. But we've never used a ram's horn in worship before. So when you're trying to learn this technology, everything was new at one time. And that is it. Thank you.
Thank you, Beverly. My name is Randy Sheeks, and I just want to thank you for being so welcoming to me. I know I'm a new face and name to each of you, and I've thoroughly enjoyed your company and your presentations and been challenged by all that I've heard. Let's talk about what we just heard. Perhaps it would be a good idea to wrap our thoughts around maybe 3 ideas. First, using technology in our teaching. Let's talk about that, and that's what you dealt with most of the time. But then secondly, and we've hinted on it here and there, what is our responsibility to teach our students for local church ministry technology? I know we talked about how to teach that well this year, and the next year it's outdated, so how do we approach that? And then thirdly, internet teaching. I know many schools are teaching online. How do we approach that? So let's talk first about classroom teaching. Any thoughts about what you heard today? Yes.
I thought it was funny, the technology in the classroom kind of, I began actually through my survey of congregational song, trying to incorporate technology, but it wasn't really my idea. I was teaching the class as I usually would, and I would start hearing the tunes that I was talking about in the class from computers. And students, whereas I was talking about it, they would Google it and have it, and it would be up and playing. Or I would be asking a question, a hypothetical question, and they go on websites, they were doing all this research. They had all their computers going while I was teaching the class, and I thought, okay, I need to adapt. And so I began asking them to bring their laptops to class. And during the class, I would say, okay, do a Google search and find this, and let's talk about this, and having them do research right there in the class. And then with the with the projector, with internet access, could broadcast it to the class and just trying to wrap that in. But actually, it was the students that started it. And if you don't do anything, if your building is wired for internet, students are going to do it.
She hinted at this. There are times when you do too much. I have a colleague that doesn't do PowerPoint because he says our students are so exposed to it that his philosophy is, I'm not going to do that. What are your thoughts, and how have you found balance in those areas? Well, I'll answer that. I think she was very savvy and smart when she said, just keep it changing. You know, so don't show 5 YouTubes every class. Some days, maybe it's a low-tech day, she said. I found that to be successful. I know, and you sort of have to adapt to the personality of the class. I've had a few classes before that whenever you put on PowerPoint, they're going to feverishly write down or type in, and that's really not the point. Is that sometimes. So some classes I've just backed off because I don't like what it does in the classroom.
What we do with our technology class that works really well is we make sure that every class period, regardless of whether or not we use YouTube, is that we sing at least 1, 2, 3, sometimes as many as like 5 or 6 different hymns or songs in the class, because of the difference between hearing it done by somebody and hearing and having it in your voice to kind of get a sense of the strength of the tune or whatever. So we just mix them.
One of the things I've done that's been helpful with the use of any presentation is by using your LMS. I always post my presentations on the LMS because I've found that if the students are most engaged with trying to write down what's on the screen, they're not engaged with the discussion, and that's just, it's kind of stupid to me to test them on whether they can write that down. So I found that I can discuss much more easily. Another funny little tip is keepvid.com. It's one of several different websites where you can download the YouTube videos. Now they take up space. It's keepvid.com. You just throw in the URL and you can download either the video or the MP3 of it if you're just using it for sound. But if you have like a suspect video connection or something like that, it's a great way to actually have it. But eventually you'll need another hard drive if you want to keep those for long term. Another funny thing is there's actually, if you have a Mac and you get annoyed by that blop, blop, blop sound on changing your volume, you can go under settings and under sounds and take that off. I know that sounds just like kind of a simple little thing. I didn't know that for quite a while. It was kind of strange. Last 2 more quick little things. In my hymnology class, because it was both congregational songs, so it went the whole gamut, and they were writing like metrical psalmody. They were kind of different things. But then we were also going to write contemporary songs and engage around those. What I did was I started a Facebook group to answer the question, what makes a great song? And what they did was they were all responsible for getting 10 video interviews of various people. What makes a great song? And it's kind of a universal question that we can't answer, and which is kind of great. So it's become this kind of storytelling thing that when each semester comes in, and the Holy Grail was the guy who sat down with the president of our university to discuss that. But then we've different people coming through. It's kind of a great. That's been kind of a great universal tool. And the last thing I would say is props to DBU. One of their grads, Scott McClellan, actually wasn't a music grad, but I think he was a literature English major. He has a great community called Echo Hub. EchoHub.com. They're out of Dallas. Used to be connected with Igniter Media, and it is a community of technology, storytelling, design, creativity. It used to be Collide magazine, but it's shifted. EchoHub.com. I'd really encourage you to connect with them and take a look. Some good stuff there. I'm doing some writing and some speaking for them this coming year. Hopefully I won't have the David Music effect on EchoHub.com. You guys gave me such a hard time last night. But the quick little tool, EchoHub.com, is a great, and engage with your students. Some really thoughtful things around technology and design and worship going on there, I thought.
Their conference, I've not been to.
I went this year for the first time.
I hope to go this year, but I've heard nothing.
Next year, the one coming up this year, because Scott's book, he's writing a book right now on storytelling, and Don Miller has just done these conferences. He did it up in Portland, and then at Westmont, and then at Belmont on storytelling. A really cool partnership. Don is going to be speaking, so just storytelling is really major right now, so that's what that conference is going to be. So it's not just tech stuff. Well, it's tech informed, but and it's also, I found that I think sometimes we can dismiss the thoughtful nature of people connected to technology, in personal or in people who use technology. I'll tell you, I'll speak for this community. They are thoughtful, probing, and theologically charged in how they discuss technology, and it's well done.
I think Andy Crouch is often connected
Sure.
to him as well. He's great.
And does with image
Shane
too.
Gibbs has a lot about the electronic culture and its effect on the church, especially, and that's been immensely helpful.
Yeah, for Andy Crouch too.
I think that leads us well into the second area. What is our responsibility, maybe what successes have you had in introducing your students to technology for the church, how they will use technology in music ministry?
I think it's critical that we have to teach them. You know, we talk about technology changing, and so our quick fix to that is teach principles and don't teach the skills. I think we have to teach them the skills. So we have a subscription to Planning Center Online. We have installed ProPresenter in all of our computer labs, multiple forms of music notation software, and I regularly give them projects and make them use that and teach them. Their assignments are watching tutorial videos, and they have to engage that. And the challenge is that I have to change and adapt with all that too. So I'm constantly learning ProPresenter, or I'm learning Planning Center Online, and making sure I'm staying up on all that. But the reality is that students are going to go out into their churches, and they're going to have to be able to use that. And I think we have to give them those skills as well as the principles for using them.
And wouldn't you say, Eric, those two in particular, there was some competition going on, but I think it's safe to say for the next few years at least that ProPresenter and Planning Center Online have kind of won their respective wars. They're also linked, so when you're set on Planning Center can be sent over. That's I've heard different. I know Beverly mentioned Logic. We just put in a new lab and we were going to go with Logic, but they haven't done an update, and I've heard, Logic is kind of a best of, kind of like in the middle. It's not industry standard, but it will kind of serve, various purposes. But we went with Pro Tools because there are rumors about Logic's future as well as Sibelius' future. They cut the workforce of Sibelius in half over the summer. The indications are it's possibly a dead platform. I mean, going forward in the future. Now, the sad thing is, my interactions are it's probably better, but it's also in terms of industry standard, it's Finale. I mean, that's what you trade.
They have. I read recently they've got a reader app now for iPad, but that's all you can do is just read the score.
Yeah.
It's not enough yet.
And the Finale Notepad is very basic, that free.
Yeah. One of the things we have to do, I think, is to teach the students how to interpret technology for the churches, because I ran into this a couple weeks ago at a church myself. A lot of churches in Oklahoma, at least, have Easy Worship. It's basically also. Easy Worship, we have a whole new set, David, music editors. They're called these people that put these software presentations together. And so you get all kinds of creative words, different text than maybe you're used to. They sometimes will take a hymn, we were singing an old gospel hymn at this little church that I was at, and I'm singing the Thee Thou language that was part of the hymn I grew up with, and I noticed that we have hiccups with the congregation, so I just glanced at the screen. Well, they had in Easy Worship updated all of that language in a way I had never seen in any hymnal. Easy Worship finds hymn stanzas I've never seen in any hymnal. So you have to teach them about that. The other thing I discovered, and I sorrow over this, the students, the generation globally, seem to not care as much about copyright issues. We talk about it, and we talk about it, and I keep talking about it, and I don't know, it just doesn't stick. It's like, well, we don't care, and they really don't care. That's right.
Well, the copyright laws have got to catch up with the digital.
Well, they will, but they'll catch up with them when they get with the church. The church is responsible. So that's another one of those integration issues.
Or university.
Or university, yes, absolutely.
Yes, I have I guess it's a caution, sort of, but I teach a music history class, and I kind of do what you do. I love to load about 15 YouTube videos and allow those to enhance what we're talking about. And it's great. Our students live in a visual world. It seems like over half the conversations I overhear in halls are about movies they've seen. I don't watch movies a lot, so it's hard to keep up even. But they live in this world, and so they love YouTube videos. But one of my favorite pieces of music is Sibelius Violin Concerto, and there's a YouTube video of think it's Hillary Hahn, I'm saying it right? She was a little girl playing it, and it's just incredible. It's incredible. And I love it. I love the piece. But then when I ask for feedback, they don't talk about the great piece of music. They don't talk about the themes. They don't talk about the suspensions that I hear in the orchestration. You know what they talk about? There's a cute little girl playing amazing violin. If I play a recording of Sibelius' Second Symphony, I talk about the transition to the last movement, which I think is fantastic. They will inevitably go back and talk about the little girl playing violin and how good she was. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is I think music needs to be an oral experience.
Have you seen the YouTube's for pages, 4 minutes, 30?
Yeah, and not just a visual one. And it's part of our responsibility is to, in church, just experience the oral side of what music can mean, and not just the visual presentation. And if we're not careful, our students will latch onto the visual more than the sound.
And I agree.
Okay, I think we're out of time. Thank you.